Hey, everybody. Happy Sunday night. I'm your host, Wes Seiler, for Refounding Fathers. This is really, an incredible show that has just been building over the past few weeks. And now we've got a full slate of guests on here. Since we started this, I've had Christopher Souza representing the liberal side, one of my favorite people to spar with in debate. Welcome back, Chris. Always good to see you, buddy.
Glad to be here. I just attended my first post-COVID party last night. Everyone who attended was vaccinated, and it was great actually being around people and not really being afraid of catching anything.
Yeah.
It was a real fun time.
Yeah, see, like in Florida, we never really had a lot of COVID, right? Like we may have had the disease, but we really never shut down all that much. And so we've always kind of been going, but we do feel, at least where I'm living in Florida, that there is more of a sense of relief. You just don't feel quite as guilty about it when you don't wear a mask. So, but that's great, man. It's good to hear. I got my vaccine. Oh gosh, it's been a little over a week, I think, from now. So I was down for a couple days, but I'm right there with you, man, enjoying being back out. And I am seeing more people out and about, and the events that I go to and stuff. So I hear you, man. And then Kyle, my libertarian buddy, thank you for helping me out with the show last week and taking over that host role in the middle of it. So good thinking on the fly. I know you're not a conservative.
Yeah, man.
Libertarian's close enough. I feel comfortable with you. I absolutely do.
Oh, yeah, for sure. We agree on more than we probably disagree on, for sure.
Absolutely. So welcome back, man. It's good to have you on the show.
Thanks, man. Excited to be here.
And then we're having Megan back again. Megan, it's so good to see you. I know last week was your first time on the show. I'm so relieved having another like true conservative on the show because it takes a lot of work to be able to put all this stuff together and get the scenes right and all that stuff. And then I forget, like, okay, oh yeah, that's right. I need to actually like have arguments and represent conservatism at some point. But having you doing that so well, like you did last week, is refreshing, and I'm grateful to have you here.
Well, thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. So one of the things that we talked about last week was immigration. As we've kind of been looking at these heated topics, and guns and immigration, and I thought we were going to do, just a quick week on immigration and then move on. But I really felt like we got into some good discussion there of bouncing this idea back. And if you think about it, there really are. There's differences within conservative circles on this issue and liberal circles and libertarian circles. And then you put all of us together in the same conversation. And it can get pretty dynamic. And then we had several folks watching live last week that were piping in, putting in comments, which we always love. And sometimes it can get heated and sometimes people can get offended, and that happens. And it's going to happen on the show. And our commitment going back to the founding fathers is to always come back to the table, always come back and be able to sort stuff out. We don't always have to agree, but we do have a conversation every single time. And I want to give you one of the comments that kind of flared up over the next day. So this is a person, Lena, who has been following the channel for really, I would say about 6 months, maybe even longer. So she's been watching most of our episodes. And she was listening to your take, and I'm just going to read this for you real quick and then get your response, Megan. Is she wanted some clarification on your point, Megan, as to why you believe it is not fair that some people went through the legal process and others don't to come here. She says that you really didn't provide context as to why that's relevant to cause argument that Republicans are isolating the Latino vote and Muslim vote. And then she kind of talked about her personal story as a family of Mexican immigrants that went through strenuous and difficult processes. And she said that I can say none of them believe this idea that it is unfair that they have to go through the process while others don't. In fact, it's quite the opposite. The whole idea of coming to America is to have a better life and give our children what we didn't have. And then she goes on about that and found it a little bit offensive. So tell me, what do you think, Megan? When you read that comment or you hear me talking about it and paraphrasing it, what are thoughts come to your head?
Well, I never intended on, speaking for this entire community. But, like I said last week, I have talked to several Mexican Americans, and this is what they have told me.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's fair, because why go through all these, all these hurdles, all of these formal documentations and all of these processes and then, you know, a few years later, people just get to come in for free. That just doesn't seem fair. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
Does that answer
Yeah, I think
Better.
you're onto something there, Megan. And I do agree with you. I mean, you know, obviously we can't take away someone's personal experience in the community that they're from, and that's what Lena, I think, is speaking to. But in a similar vein, I believe we got Alex, who is also kind of a regular contributor and maybe does some other things with the channel as well, who is also Hispanic and seems to have kind of a different take on this, saying that, you know, from his perspective and the perspective of the people that he talks to, it is an unfair process where some people just get to come in and you know, people have worked hard, and this is true. I mean, I have lots of friends who are from Canada, from Europe, who have immigrated to the States and have been going through the process for upwards of 10 years just to become a legal citizen here, and which maybe speaks to the point that our system is inherently broken if it takes a 10-year process for someone to come to this country. So yeah, I think you're onto something, Megan, that you know, people you know, the perception might be that some people come and get to skip the line or don't have to endure the hardships that other people do. But maybe there's a solution in there as well. You know, I think we can diagnose the problem, but say, you know, just because X number of people had to suffer, that doesn't mean that everyone else has to suffer too.
Right. I mean, Alex just had a comment. He said it's a mistake to pigeonhole the entire Hispanic and immigrant community as being in favor of illegal immigration. And I think it works both ways, right? Is there some diversity within that perspective? So what are your thoughts, Chris?
Yeah, I think comments like Lena's and Alex's are so important because I think they do show kind of our limitations on this show. You know, none of us are from the Hispanic community, so all we can do is listen. And I don't doubt at all that Megan has heard from many Mexican Americans who feel like it is unfair that they had to go through such a long and arduous process while others do not. I think the solution to that is to make the process more fair for everybody. As Kyle said, I think the fact that it takes 10 years for good, hardworking people to come into this country is very unfair. And if I were someone who had done that and I looked at someone who skipped the line, I think I might find that unfair as well. But I think the larger unfairness is that the line itself should be a lot more fair, less arbitrary, less restrictive. It should be a lot more promoting of freedom, including economic freedom, which is a conservative and libertarian principle that I think our current immigration restrictionist policies in this country really is not promoting that kind of freedom. And I think that if we did that, we would see a lot fewer illegal immigrants. We would see less illegal immigration because more immigration would be legal. So when Alex says, you know, Hispanics don't necessarily favor illegal immigration, I don't think necessarily anyone favors illegal immigration. Those of us who are often accused of favoring illegal immigration, what we really want is for more immigration to be legal.
Well, you know, I think the biggest argument from the conservative side is one of culture and making sure that people have respect for this culture and the laws of this country. And if they start off by disrespecting that, even if that's out of a sense of desperation, the question becomes, how do we recover that? How do we recover some sense of like civic responsibility, you know, to these people? And there's not really a great answer to that question as far as I'm concerned. Do you agree with that, Megan, as a conservative yourself?
Yes. I'm having a hard time concentrating today. Sorry, we just had Derby yesterday. It's been like a whirlwind of a week.
You're
big day for sure.
Yeah, in Kentucky. Yeah, I think that is true. I understand Chris's point where, you know, if we maybe made the process better, we would have immigrants and maybe, you know, less issues overall with that. But I also think at the same time that now is time to focus on our own country and our own people that really need help. I mean, we have obviously these issues that we're so far apart on, some people, and it just, with everything going on now, I think we need to put America and Americans first. I mean, that's my main concern, because I don't like seeing Americans that have been here, kind of being pushed aside and saying, well, you're already here, so everything's fine for you, when that's just not the case.
Right. Yeah.
So
There's a perspective that we have of that this country's in crisis, and it's completely shifting and losing its sense of identity. And I think you see that on both sides. I mean, I think you see conservatives who are not doing well speaking to liberals as much as you see the opposite. And I do think there has to be a priority put on that. Is Yeah, I remember a book by Samuel Huntington that was asking the question, "Who are we?" Like,
Yeah.
what is our country actually about? And it seems like everybody has a different idea, and you see, aspects of socialism. And I mean, I remember when Obama, he was called a socialist, and he was like, "Of course not, absolutely not. That's not me." With Joe the plumber and that whole thing years ago. And now socialism has been made into us. It's part of the conversation apparently with AOC and Bernie Sanders and the rest. And so there's this kind of
Yeah.
identity crisis that we feel like is going on in America, and then you want to add immigration to that, without fixing the system. That's that would.
Yeah, I
Go ahead.
kind of spoken to that a little bit last week. I mentioned that when I was growing up, we used to call America a melting pot, right? We used to have kind of a more central national identity that people came, they assimilated into, they adopted the American values, whatever those are, and that's what we were, right? But now, at some point in my life, we've shifted from being a melting pot into a mosaic where people are encouraged to embrace their cultural heritage, and what makes you people beautiful is this, what makes these other people beautiful is this, and together we are all America. And I think that's a fine thing to celebrate culture, but when we're trying to build a nation, that can cause some inherent problems. I think we're going to maybe talk about it, and maybe this is a good transition for us. But what is America, right? What is America? Is America an idea? Is America a nation? Is America a culture? What is America?
Yeah,
And I think before we can really tackle some of these other questions, maybe we deal with that question.
Yeah, I think Chris had shared this to me during the week, and it's a tweet from Rich Lowry, who just very simply put out there, "America is a nation, not an idea." And I think that's fascinating. I mean, it's just only a handful of words there, but it's amazing that he put that out there, because I don't know how many people agree with that or disagree with it. I would say if people think about it, it's actually a very controversial statement. So, I mean,
Yeah.
Chris, when you sent it to me, what was kind of your impression?
Yeah, I used to like Rich Lowry a lot when I would hear him on like Left, Right, and Center. But I think his recent push toward nationalism over the last few years has been a little bit troubling. I think this is a very kind of new idea in conservatism, if not new for conservatism, one that is definitely gaining a lot more popularity. That where America, Reagan had his whole America as a shining city on a hill.
Right.
Yeah.
Which this idea that America is more than just a nation. America is a set of values, and we have a bigger responsibility to the world. And I think that when I started noticing this trend, I think was a remark that Donald Trump made when he was running for president in 2015. He was asked about Vladimir Putin poisoning journalists and kind of committing all these horrible crimes, and his response was not to condemn Putin, but to say, "Well, you think we're so innocent? You think America is any better?"
Yeah, I remember.
And at the time, I thought, wow, that's really shocking. But then I saw a lot of, especially the alt-right, really adopting this idea that America isn't necessarily better than any other nations. And it was almost like a rejection of American exceptionalism, which has always been associated more with the right than with the left. I've heard liberals all my life say that America is not better than any other nations. But to them, I think that was a problem where they were saying, okay, America needs to do better. When I hear it from like the alt-right, which Rich Lowry I'm not saying is alt-right, but when I hear it from the alt-right, it comes across as, therefore, we don't have any greater responsibility to the world. We don't need to take in more immigrants. We don't need to take in more refugees. We are a nation with borders, and that is what defines us. And to me, seeing Rich Lowry, who's more on the intellectual end of the conservative spectrum, promoting that idea was very disturbing to me.
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it is it goes back to the founding, which is why I think this is such a great question for our show. Is people have, especially within conservative circles, they have completely different views of the founders. I had George Will on here a few months ago, and he's very much of the idea, answer to this question. Is he's very much a Madisonian who was like, yep, the ideas that came out of Madison's head that's the center of America. That's the focus. And then there are other people who maybe not, maybe they think about the culture that was built over time. That's very much the Russell Kirk type perspective, is that America didn't just start on 1776 or 1789. It was built because of English common law, which could trace it, all the way back to the Greeks and the Romans and Cicero and all this stuff. Had this culture that built up, and then America was just the evolution of that, that was done right. And then you bring in Burke into it, who's kind of in between both, is like, yep, we've got ideas, but we also have heritage and culture. And so, but I think this is such a healthy conversation to have, because if you think America is a nation of what? Of who? Is it like Kyle was saying, is it a mosaic now, or should it be a melting pot? And then at this, in the same vein, what ideas are we talking about? Is the idea of America freedom, or is it equality, or is it a mix of both? Is it limited government? This is such a complicated question that speaks to Samuel Huntington. And I don't think you're going to resolve it fully, but I would love for us to have it on the national stage if we were going to make changes to immigration, as opposed to, I don't know, what we've seen in presidential debates, where instead of having this type of controversy or question, they can barely speak over each other. You know what I mean? They're talking about the lowest possible, form of political discourse instead of big ideas like this.
Miriam is talking here in the comments. She's got a couple of different things here. And because America was founded on principles based on evangelical Christianity that would save the republic from demise. I maybe agree with that loosely, but she says it's a hybrid, basically. America is a nation, not an idea. She says it's a hybrid, and I think that could be right. I think there's a mixture of both there. What I'm interested in, if it's okay to kind of move this along, we've talked about how there is a problem. Our country faces a problem with immigration, right?
Right.
We all see it. We see it on the left. We see it on the right. So my question for Megan and Chris is, what's the solution, right? What's the solution? What are some practical things that we can push towards good governance for our politicians to enact? What are things that we can do as citizens to enact good change on this issue?
For me, again, streamlining. Oh, go ahead, Megan.
No, I was just going to say, to enact what? What was the last part you said? I missed it. To enact.
Yeah, to enact good governance, good progress towards this issue.
Go ahead.
For me, again, streamlining the process, prioritizing violent criminals when it comes to deportations and border security, so that we're not wasting massive amounts of government money and resources to round up, little old ladies and farm workers and separating children at the border. That's not necessary. It's a wasteful bureaucracy. ICE is one of the top 10 wasteful bureaucracies, I think, in this country. So I definitely think just prioritization and streamlining the process, because so many of the problems that come with immigration are self-inflicted.
What do you think, Megan?
I think you have some good points there, Chris. I just think that, I keep going back to this. Well, language, for one, is something that always comes up to me. I don't necessarily think it's fair to, have all these kids going into the public school systems, or just as an example, and nobody in the family speaks English. Well, how does the teacher, go about trying to teach this kid, even telling them, basic school policies and things, when they don't speak any English? And I know there are places that will help, to translate and things like that. But I think it should be a responsibility that they at least put in some effort into learning English. Now, obviously, it's going to take time, and you don't have to be perfect at it. But I think, that would just be like a goodwill kind of notion. Whereas we have, I've heard people just yelling at Latino girls in the grocery stores, telling them that the cashier, just because she looks Latino, she needs to be able to speak Spanish to the people that can't speak English. And that, again, is not fair to her, So I don't know. That's just one thing. But Chris is right with the policies, and I don't know all the details all about that. We do have some, wasted resources. I would agree. But yeah, I guess like Wes said, having this conversation is where you start, and I don't know how to fix it.
Well, I think it comes back to the ability to work together. There was this point at which Cruz and Rubio were working with Democrats years ago, the Gang of Eight, trying to come
Gang
up
of
with
Eight, yeah.
policy solutions, and it ultimately failed miserably. But they were on a track towards a bipartisan solution. But you know what? That doesn't really sell. Like especially in
No,
the era we
yeah,
live in now.
it
Is I
doesn't.
really
Yeah,
think
Trump used that. Trump used that against Rubio throughout the primary in
right.
2016.
I,
Yeah.
I don't think we're actually interested in bipartisan solutions because it's so much more profitable to be able to hate your enemy. And so, it's part of this larger problem that we have. If even if there was an answer, would we really go for that? Right. And so the things that we talk about on this show, I think we have to think about, okay, even if you have a great solution, how would you actually market that in this volatile era? Because if you just have it and you say, "Yep, this is an answer," and it's pretty good on every side, people are being forced into extremes so often, and no one's going to go for it. So you have to kind of anticipate that and figure out how to be able to do a better job whenever you do have the solution of getting people to accept it. And how you do that—that's something we're going to have to get into with all of these issues. Right, as we move forward. So I'm looking forward to that. We can continue talking about this, and we've raised a lot of larger concerns. I think we're going to have to get into guns as well. That's another big issue that conservatives and liberals and libertarians all have different perspectives on. So we'll have to get into the Second Amendment and all that. I'm grateful for all of y'all and your perspectives on this. And, as we kind of model this discourse for people, it's a lot of fun to be able to see it across the spectrum. So Megan, Kyle, Chris, thank you all. Thank you all for being here. Looking forward to having you on the next show. All the people that commented, Miriam, Scott, Alex, appreciate your thoughts. Let us know if you've got other topics you want us to get into. If you've got more feedback, send it our way, and we'll be happy to bring it up on the show. Have a great night, y'all.
Thank you.